I went over to her house that day, not because I was brave, but because I was tired. Tired of pretending I didn't miss her. Tired of walking past her like she was just another person in the hallway. Tired of replaying that night in my head and wondering where we went wrong. The walk to her house felt longer than usual. Every step felt like a question. What if she didn't want to see me? What if I was the only one who still cared? What if the silence had already done too much damage? I almost turned back twice, but I didn't. I stood at her gate for a full minute before knocking, and when the door opened, it wasn't her, it was her mom. She smiled warmly, the kind of smile that makes you feel both safe and exposed at the same time. "Ah, it's been a while," she said, and that sentence alone made my chest tighten, because it had been a while, too long. She let me in. The house smelled the same, familiar, comforting, dangerous. She asked me to sit in the parlor, and then she asked the question I wasn't ready for. "So, why haven't you been coming around?" Her tone was light, but her eyes weren't. They were searching. I opened my mouth to answer, but the words didn't feel real. "I've just been busy," I said. Busy. Busy doing what? Avoiding her. Avoiding myself. Avoiding whatever it was that scared me after that night. "I've had schoolwork," I added. Schoolwork. Even I didn't believe it. She nodded, slowly, too slowly, like she could see the cracks in every sentence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Honest. I shifted in my seat. I couldn't stay. Not like this. So I stood up. "I should probably get going," I said. Coward. That's what I felt like. But before I could take another step, she said, "Wait." Her voice changed, still calm but firm. She looked toward the hallway and called out, "Amy." My heart stopped. Footsteps approached. Slow. Careful. And then she appeared, standing there, looking just as nervous as I felt. For a second, neither of us spoke. We just stared, like two people who had so much to say but didn't know where to begin. Her mum looked at both of us, and in a voice that carried both authority and kindness, she said, "Whatever it is, go to your room and work it out." There was no anger in her tone, just certainty, like she already knew. Amy hesitated. Then she turned, and I followed. The walk to her room felt unreal, like everything around us had gone quiet. She opened the door, we stepped inside, and she closed it behind us. The click of the lock sounded louder than it should have. We stood there, not touching, not speaking, just breathing. Weeks of distance sitting between us like a third person in the room. She leaned against the door. I stood near the wall. My hands felt cold. My thoughts louder than ever. Say something. Anything. But before I could, she moved. 3 steps, that's all it took. 3 steps and she was in front of me. Close. Too close. Her eyes searching mine, like she was looking for confirmation or permission. And then she did it. She pulled me toward her. Not aggressively, not angrily, desperately, like she was afraid I would disappear again. And when our lips met, it wasn't just a kiss. It was weeks of silence breaking. It was fear dissolving. It was everything we swallowed finally coming up for air. The kiss wasn't rushed, but it wasn't slow either. It was urgent, like we were trying to prove something to each other, to ourselves, to the silence that had almost ruined us. My hands found her shoulders, her fingers tightened around me, and for the first time in weeks, nothing felt distant, nothing felt confusing. It felt normal, like we had never. When we finally pulled apart, we didn't step away. Our foreheads stayed close, our breathing uneven. Her eyes were glossy, and then she whispered, "I'm sorry." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry for letting the distance grow loud." That sentence broke something in me, because she was right. The distance had been loud, louder than our laughter, louder than our conversations, louder than the way we used to say each other's names. I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry too," I said, "for avoiding you, for pretending I didn't care, for acting like I wasn't scared." She shook her head softly. "I thought you regretted it," she admitted. Regretted it. That word hurt. "I didn't," I said immediately. "I just didn't know what to do with it. With us. With what it meant." She exhaled slowly. And this time when we kissed, it was different. Slower. Softer. Intentional. Not trying to fix anything. Just trying to feel. And in that moment, the anger faded. The confusion softened. The silence lost its power. We pulled away gently, and instead of standing apart, we sat down on her bed, side by side, close enough to feel each other's warmth, but far enough to talk, really talk. We spoke about that night, about how everything changed after, about how we both felt something deeper than friendship and didn't know how to name it. We talked about fear, about how scary it is to feel something that could change everything, about how easier it is to avoid than to confront. And slowly, the space between us disappeared. We laughed again, quietly, carefully, like testing whether joy still fit us, and it did. When I finally left her house that evening, her mom looked at us both. She didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She just smiled. The kind of smile that says, "You'll figure it out." As I walked home, the sky was softer, the air lighter, not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because we had finally spoken, and sometimes that's all it takes to choose each other again. My phone buzzed just as I reached my street. It was her. One message. "I'm glad you came." I smiled, and for the first time in weeks, I really did. After that day in her room, everything felt different. Not awkward, not confusing, just right. It was like the silence we had been carrying finally dissolved. Amy and I became close again, closer than we had ever been before. We talked more, laughed more, and every moment we found alone together felt like something precious we had to protect. Sometimes it was just sitting beside each other on her bed, talking about nothing important. Sometimes it was sharing quiet looks across the room when other people were around. And sometimes, when the house was quiet and the hallway empty, we would steal a kiss. Not rushed, not reckless, just two people trying to hold on to something that felt fragile. Those moments felt like little pieces of freedom, little moments where the world outside didn't exist. For a while, it felt like we had figured it out, like we had found our way back to each other. But secrets have a way of reminding you they are still there. One afternoon, we were in her room again, music playing softly from her phone, the door closed, the house quiet. We were sitting close on the edge of her bed, talking, laughing, and somewhere between one joke and the next, the conversation faded, and we leaned into each other, her hand resting lightly on my arm, my fingers brushing against hers. Then, the kiss, soft, familiar, comfortable in the way only something repeated many times can be. For a moment, the world disappeared again, until the door suddenly pushed open. We froze. Her brother stood in the doorway. The look on his face shifted from confusion to realization. His eyes moved slowly from Amy to me. Neither of us spoke. Neither did he. The silence felt louder than anything. He closed the door again, slowly, and turned to leave. Amy reacted first. She rushed after him into the hallway. I stayed where I was, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it filled the entire room. Their voices were low in the hallway. I couldn't hear the words, only the tension. Minutes felt like hours. When she came back inside, her expression had changed. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes tired. "What did he say?" I asked. She hesitated, then said quietly, "He wants to tell our parents." And in that moment, my whole world felt like it was collapsing. Fear is strange. It doesn't always show itself loudly. Sometimes it just sits quietly in your chest, making every breath feel heavier. Amy told me not to worry. She said she convinced him, that he agreed not to say anything, but the fear didn't disappear. Not completely. I didn't know what she said to him, and I didn't ask, but something about the way he looked at us after that day had changed. He didn't confront us again. He didn't tell their parents, but he knew, and that knowledge sat between all of us like an invisible line. Still, life moved forward. Amy and I kept finding small ways to be together, moments in empty hallways, long conversations in her room, quiet smiles across the room when no one else noticed. Our relationship became something delicate, something hidden, something that existed in the spaces between ordinary moments. And even though the secret made everything more complicated, it also made every moment together feel more special. Time passed, faster than either of us expected. One day, Amy told me something that made my chest tighten. She was leaving for college. It wasn't far, only 2 hours away, but it still felt like the ground shifting under my feet. 2 hours suddenly felt like another world. The days leading up to her departure felt different. Every moment felt heavier, like we were both aware that something was changing, and neither of us wanted to say it out loud. 2 days before she left, I stayed at her house. Those 2 days felt suspended in time. We spent most of it in her room, talking, planning, trying to convince ourselves that nothing would really change. We talked about visiting each other, weekend trips, phone calls, messages. Every plan sounded simple when we said it out loud, but underneath those plans was something neither of us wanted to admit. Distance changes things. Still, we held on to each other a little longer than usual. We laughed more, talked late into the night, shared quiet moments that didn't need words, trying to memorize the feeling of being close, trying to store it somewhere safe. The morning she left came too quickly. Suitcases by the door, her parents moving around the house, the car waiting outside. We stood in her room one last time, neither of us speaking, just standing there, holding each other, trying to make the moment last longer than it wanted to. Eventually, she pulled back, looked at me, and smiled. Not a sad smile, a hopeful one. "We'll figure it out," she said, and I nodded. Because sometimes belief is the only thing you have left. Then she left for college, 2 hours away, and suddenly the house felt very quiet. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A message from Amy. Just 3 words. "I already miss you." And if you've ever felt something like this, you're not alone. Like, subscribe, and follow us on BU Diaries. There's more we haven't said yet.